Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Enchantments of Mammon, How Capitalism Became the Religion of Modernity, by Eugene McCarraher, narrated by Paul Boehmer. Prologue. Once upon a time the world was enchanted. Rocks, trees, rivers, and rain pulsated with invisible forces, powers that enlivened and determined the affairs of tribes and empires as well. Though beholden to the caprice or providential design of a variety of spirits and deities, the world of enchantment could be commanded by magic or humbly beseeched through prayer. But, with the Reformation, the Enlightenment, and industrial capitalism in Europe, the company of spirits was evicted from the cosmos. If the medieval church had preserved the pagan phantoms in its sacraments and saintly relics, its sober and industrious Protestant antagonists began the demolition of enchantment. Gradually, the sciences dispelled the realm of mystery. The prose of reason hushed the poetry of superstition. Greed and calculation fostered callous disregard for the earth and the bonds of community. Dispossessed from their ancestral homes, the remnants of enchantment fled into our private chambers of fantasy or faith. And as science, technology, and capitalism come to embrace the entire globe, the enchanted specters of other peoples will be duly banished or sequestered as well. Entitled The Disenchantment of the World by the German sociologist and historian Max Weber, this story is the predominant account of modernity in the West and increasingly beyond, and capitalism plays a pivotal role in the course of releasing the making and exchange of goods from traditional restraints. Capitalism evacuated sacredness from material objects and social relationships. Once capable of linking us to divinity or of binding us to one another, things lost their souls when they became commodities made and exchanged for profit. Avarice, once one of the 7 deadly sins, morphed into the self-interest or initiative indispensable to wealth and innovation, while the inscrutable ways of providence yielded to the laws of supply and demand. And if enchanted forces received our devotion, entreaty, and gratitude, disenchanted forces could be mastered with money and greater technological prowess. As the economist Robert Heilbronner once summarized the conventional wisdom, capitalism is not sacred but secular, and would be impossible in a sacralized world to which men would relate with awe and veneration. Indeed, nothing seems more thoroughly secular than the modern business corporation, the leviathan of the 21st century and the preeminent institution of our Gilded Age. To its admirers, the corporation is the servant of a democratic market, an unfairly maligned and underappreciated creator of abundant, commodified marvels. To its detractors, it is a remorseless gargantua despoiling the planet, an insatiable, globe-encircling syndicate reliant on mendacity and exploitation. Yet, both admirers and detractors of the corporation agree on its thorough disenchantment. Corporations must mobilize profit and accumulate capital, organizing money, expertise, and technology with sober judgment and utmost efficiency. Whatever their owners, managers, or workers may believe in their homes or office cubicles, corporations cannot and dare not rely on magic, divination, or prayer. They must organize every factor of production, from fiber optic cables and human resources to the dream of the ad department, and calibrate the marginal utility of every expenditure, exertion, and longing. No beatitudes here, no works of mercy, no yearning for paradise. As we're reminded every time there's the slightest complaint about the lack of decency or justice, out of this disciplined hunger for money comes the splendor of capitalist civilization, its protean energy, its surfeit of pleasures, its exotic gallery of images, its ingenious, bustling, and exuberant indulgence of every paying desire. The roles of patron and moralist, once assumed by religion, are now leveraged by capital. The arts, athletics, and scholarship receive plentiful corporate largesse, while brands, slogans, and advertising supplant icons, chants, and commandments. For the 4 decades before the financial crisis unfolded in the fall of 2008, capitalism's lavish indifference to piety was a major selling point. In the fleshpots of American suburbia, where the armada of SUVs ferry the heavily indebted through the consumer republic, the spectacular rain of money seemed well-nigh ubiquitous and irreversible. And to cultures still mired in the backwaters of enchantment, capitalist modernity was marketed as the greatest jubilee season in history. Breaking the shackles of immemorial customs, capitalism offered the sale of commodities, not the dutiful worship of relics, the fulfillment of the self, not subordination to the past, the romance of the present and the promise of the future, not the veil of tears and a hope beyond the grave. In the words of journalist Michael Lewis, capitalists are practitioners of liberty who do not suffer constraints on their private ambition and who work hard, if unintentionally, to free others from constraint. Firmly committed to the real world of disenchanted, manipulable forces, they represent the spiritual antithesis of religious fundamentalists who thwart this labor of liberty in the name of some putatively higher power. Karl Marx wrote much the same thing a century and a half earlier, with greater flourish and prophetic grandeur. All that is solid melts into air. All that is holy is profaned. Capitalism's most unlikely celebrant, Marx observed how the market, far from being a bastion of conservatism, dissolves all fixed, fast-frozen relations with their train of ancient and venerable prejudices. History's assassin of enchantment, capitalism, drowns the most heavenly ecstasies of religious fervor in the icy waters of egotistical calculation. Yet, despite the secular veneer of capitalist life, it's not at all clear that enchantment lies lifeless in the Arctic mercenary deep. To journalist Naomi Klein, the neoliberal economics of the past 40 years amounts to a veritable creed, the contemporary religion of unfettered free markets. Indeed, corporate business has always had a deep New Age streak, she observes, with branding as the most advanced form of corporate transcendence. The Nike swoosh, the Starbucks siren, and other trademarks are neoliberal totems of enchantment. Journalist Barbara Ehrenreich discovers that, despite its reputation for a ruthless focus on the bottom line, corporate business is shot through with magical thinking, inspired and mesmerized by a burgeoning portfolio of New Age quackery and bunkum. Evangelicals refer to Jesus Christ as their CEO or personal investment advisor, while management writers cull from Lao Tzu, Buddha, Confucius, and Carl Jung. Counting out 7 habits or 4 competencies or 67 principles of success, business advice books can be as comically arcane as end-times prophecy, the oracles of Nostradamus, or another Dan Brown novel. Some writers see a sacrament
Sample complete. Ready to continue?